recently, I think I had my most recent wake up call. And I want to share this because it reminded me of some lessons that I already had learned and I'd kind of forgotten along the way. And I had to really come back to center and ask myself, what really matters here? And when I really sat down and I thought about this, I realized I had things so wrong 11 years ago when I started business. Well, hey there, and welcome to the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. My name is Sam Hind. I'm your host, and it is my absolute pleasure today to welcome you on into this episode where I want to share with you a little bit of heart, to be perfectly honest. As a mumpreneur, in other words, a mum who runs business, I have learned some lessons over the years that continue to keep giving when it comes to balancing motherhood, being a wife, being a friend, being a daughter, and of course, business. And all of those things, let me be perfectly clear, are never going to be in perfect balance. But I like to use the word instead, harmony, because there is a harmony to doing this. But I started out making so many mistakes. I wish I could go back right now and tell my past self some of those lessons that I've learned so I could be a better mum. I could take better care of myself. And even more importantly, I could show up for all of those people around me as the best version of myself I possibly could. And that comes with giving a little bit of grace. So today I want to share with you what some of those lessons are. And the reason I want to do this is because if you're a parent in business, whether you have really young children, whether you've got grandchildren, whether you aren't a parent yet at all, and maybe that's something on the cards down the track, I'd like to encourage you, maybe just consider some of these lessons that I've learned and ask yourself, is there anything here that I can learn from without having to go through things the hard way like Sam did? So let's dive on in. I want to share with you a quick story in a little moment about why these lessons matter just so much. But I want to just remind you, of course, if you love this episode, two things. First of all, I'd love for you to subscribe if you haven't done that yet so you don't miss out on any of our upcoming episodes. We've always got some incredible value being provided to you here. And as a free resource and something that we invest oodles of time and money and effort into, we'd love to be able to impact more people. And you're part of helping us do that. So the second thing I'd love to ask you to do is share this episode with someone special who's on your heart, who might also love to hear this message today. Today, I want to talk to you about something that, like I said, is really close to my heart, and that is a harmony between being both a mum and a businesswoman. This is something that I get wake-up calls about consistently, and recently, I think I had my most recent wake-up call. And I want to share this because it reminded me of some lessons that I already had learned and I'd kind of forgotten along the way. And I had to really come back to center and ask myself, what really matters here? And when I really sat down and I thought about this, I realized I had things so wrong 11 years ago when I started business. I was of the opinion when I started out that my kids would one day really appreciate how hard I was working. I was of the opinion that my kids would value the big explosive gestures that I would make occasionally. And I didn't need to be that mum who showed up every day for school pickup and made their school lunches every day and had a perfect home for them to come home to every day, but that they would see me as this career woman, that they would, be proud of me, that they would tell their friends, look at what my mum does. And I'm so proud of what she does. And I'm proud to call her my mum. And these were so incredibly wrong, these assumptions I made. And my kids didn't care about any of those things. They still don't care about any of those things. And I'm going to share, I want to share something that is really personal to me in this episode. And the reason I want to do it is because I think sometimes those experiences that we have in life, and this is quite a painful experience, but these are experiences that we have because, number one, we're being shown that we need to grow ourselves into a better version of ourselves, and we're being taught a lesson. But the other thing is that I think there's a lot to this that we need to do to show up for others. Like, I'm not using my words very well right now because I'm sort of in my heart space at the moment. And I want to tell you guys a story in a moment, but I think that there's possibly some people out there that might need to hear this message who maybe haven't had to go down this painful track yet, but potentially it's on the cards. And if by me sharing this story with you and the lessons that I've learned along the way, it can help you to redirect yourself sooner, then that would be huge for me. That would be huge for me to know that I've been able to have that impact on somebody else, because I'm going to be really honest, I kind of wish someone had told me some of these lessons early on. And I really had this false impression that I had to pick being a mum or being a career woman. And I was really struggling with this because I wanted both. I wanted both worlds. And so, I've seen people do this in a myriad of different ways. And I feel really blessed in this very moment because while I feel like I really did stuff this up with my kids who are now teenagers, I'm now looking at the opportunity I have ahead of me. I get to try this again. I think a lot of people don't. And I've got a beautiful little girl now. She's 2 years old, and I am applying these things I'm about to share with you to her life and to this new harmony that I'm learning to create. And so I do feel very blessed. I feel very privileged in that. But let me tell you where this is all coming from, because I need to kind of frame this out for you for a little moment. My husband, Greg, and I have got two beautiful kids each to two previous marriages. And when we met, those kids were really little. When I went through my marriage breakup, my youngest son was 3 weeks old. I met Greg a number of months later, and it all felt like a huge whirlwind, like so much was going on, and I was not prepared to be in a relationship so soon. In fact, I was really quite happy learning how to be happy alone. But sometimes, life steers us in directions we don't expect, and we have to embrace those opportunities, right? And I'm so grateful today. I have an amazing husband and an incredible family. I have got my two beautiful boys, Aiden and Levi, and then we've got Greg's beautiful kids, Riley and Zara, who to me are my beautiful bonus kids that I get the privilege and the pleasure to be a part of their lives. And of course, we now have Addie, which Addie is Adeline is our only daughter together. But the thing is that back in those early days, not all that long after I met Greg, I decided to start a business. Now, this has been 11 years, right? So I've been in business for a while now. And in those early stages, actually, for most of my business life as an entrepreneur or a mumpreneur, it has been a whirlwind and a learning curve. I had no idea going into business what that would entail. But what I did know was that I wanted to create my own success and my own future and my own opportunities. And I felt that being a mum was something that would hold me back. And I didn't value the importance of being present with my kids because I figured I'll always have that later. I will always be able to be a mum down the track. And I realized I hadn't facilitated the everyday. I hadn't created an environment where I was able to be present with my kids on a daily basis and be present in my business. And look, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. For most people, their business is also their baby. And for me, that is certainly the case. It has been the case for many years. But all of my babies matter to me, and my children matter to me so much more, because the business will always be there. I can always pick that up later on. I can always, grow it at a later stage, but I will never get that time with my kids back. And I had this wake up call, and I really had to stop and ask myself what really matters. So I did a little bit of soul searching, and I asked myself, over the last 11 years, what have I learned that I could pass on to some other people who are wanting to learn, what does this harmony look like, where I can have business, I can grow business, but I can also be a parent. And the reason I wanted to answer this question is because I also grew up with parents who were working insanely hard. I saw them burning out. I saw them stressed. I saw them being unavailable, not present. And I honestly felt like for a lot of my childhood, I knew they loved me because they were working so hard for me, but I didn't feel necessarily their presence and a connection. And I realized I had literally done exactly the same things to my kids. So here are 5 things that I would go back and tell myself 11 years ago to be very, very careful of and be aware of and set these things up right from the very beginning. Here's the first one. Number one, be present, not perfect. I had this thought that if I can get it all exactly right, then I can be there for my kids and then I'll be the mum that they want to see. I also thought that being present was being in the room. Being present was just being home, and it couldn't be further from the truth. I'll talk to you about boundaries shortly, but I noticed the difference in my kids from me being in the room and being on a computer versus me being on my phone. And being on my phone, or me actually being there with them and off those devices. As they've gone on into being teenagers, I realize I'm frustrated at how long they're on technology and the fact that they're on their phones all the time. But what did I teach them in those early days? What was I doing? When I was working from home, I was thinking I was doing them a favor because I was present, I was in the house. But the moment I would walk in the door, I would beeline for my laptop and I would be working my backside off, thinking that they need to be grateful because I have set up a business where I can be present and be at home with them. Only I wasn't home with them at all. I was away in our own house. And my kids were almost seeing less of me because I didn't have this divide. So the second thing that I want to share, and this is completely connected to the first, and that is having boundaries. Boundaries are king. And this was something I slowly set up over time, but if I could go back in time, I would absolutely do this right from the very beginning. The first boundary I set up was one when I literally walked through the door one day. I picked the kids up from school, and I had the shopping bags from the groceries, everything there, and I was like, okay. I walked in the door and I thought, as soon as I walked in the door, because my office was in my home at that stage, I felt this weight on my shoulders because I realized that this was where everything was. It was cooking dinner. It was, all of the jobs, all of the chores, and all of the work. And as soon as I walked in the door, I felt this weight of all of the things I had to do in my business as much as all of the things I had to do as a mum and as a wife and to keep the home. And so I just felt this huge weight. And I realized in that moment, I can't have my office in my home anymore. Now, I know some of you absolutely can rock that. You can do it really well. I couldn't, because to me, I felt the weight of being successful, running my business and being there as a family woman all together in the one place. And it just wasn't working for me. My stress levels, my anxiety was impacting my kids. And it meant that I couldn't be present with them because every time I sat down to hang with them, I was thinking about my desk that was over there behind me and the to-do list that was piling up. So the next day, I rang a couple of friends who were in business who I knew had offices not all that far away. And I just said, hey, do any of you have a spare room in your office that I could rent for you, rent from you? And I could just go to each day, work in office hours, and then come home and be at home. And it was a really simple, easy way for me to create this segment from home to work. And so I literally, the only time I ever came back into my home was for a few weeks, of course, during COVID lockdown. And that didn't last very long because I actually really love being in my own space. I like coming home and home being home and work being work. That was just me. But that also meant that my kids knew when I came home, I was home. I was mum now. I wasn't career woman. That was left in the office. So this could actually be done in the home as well. I didn't have an opportunity in that particular house, but if you've got a separate office, simply closing the door and not entering, having the boundary that I don't enter that office after a particular time. I used to do this also by changing, it sounds a little bit funny, but changing my clothes. So I would go at 9 a.m. in the morning after I'd done school drop off. I would put my work clothes on in my own home, go to my desk, do my work, and then change out of my work clothes as soon as I was switched off. And it was almost like it created this separation in my brain between those two zones of the house. So there are ways to do this when you don't have the option like I had of going and working from someone's office, but you will be surprised if you're having trouble with this and being focused on your business and having that separation. You'll be surprised at how many people have just got a spare space you can use so you can have that different zone to go into. Now today we rent a completely separate office space that is in the city, and people will often say to me, "Why are you and Greg joining us, on two different Zooms when you work together and you're in the same home?" And the answer is we're not in the same place. Greg has got a studio out in our shed at home, and I have an office in town, and I've maintained that. So that was boundary number one. Boundary number two was my mobile phone in the home. I caught myself, as I know many of the people I speak to do and still do, I would wake up through the night and I would literally roll over, to get a drink of water or something or go to the bathroom, and I would tap my phone out of pure habit to see if I had had any messages or if there are any notifications. It was literally subconscious. But the problem with that was I would see a notification that would get my attention, and suddenly I'm wide awake and I'm working at 2:00 in the morning. I'm sending an urgent email, or I'm doing this or I'm doing that. Likewise, my kids would be at home, we would have dinner, and I'm checking my phone all throughout the night. And there came a point where I actually caught myself being super hypocritical with them and saying, it's time to get off your phones. We need to have some present time with the family, realizing that they're only doing exactly what I've been doing for years. So there came a point where I said, that's it, line in the sand. Phone at 8:00 at night. And, I'm working on getting this earlier and earlier now, by the way. This is a work in progress for sure. But at 8:00 at night, my phone goes on to do not disturb mode. And for the last 6 years now, my phone has never made it into my bedroom. It goes on charge in a completely separate part of the house so that through the night, number one, I'm not tempted to touch my phone, but I've also noticed I've got better quality of sleep because I don't have that energy anywhere near me anymore. Now, this is definitely a boundary I would have set much earlier on, and I think it's one that's had probably one of the greatest impacts on myself and my family. So definitely a lesson I would go back and I would say to past self, do this and do it now. Get your phone out of your bedroom, have a curfew on your phone so your kids are watching you and they're learning by example, and you are being present with them in the home. Here's number three. This is a really, really big one because I felt, I'm not that mom who is, doing the PTA thing. I'm not the mom who is showing up and volunteering at the school all the time because I'm running a business over here. I'm not the mum who is, at all of the school events or picking them up and dropping them off every day. I'm going to use tools like the bus, etc., so that I can work more, so that I can do big elaborate things for my kids, like take them on a amazing holiday or a trip here, or do all of these things and take them water skiing on the weekends, and they will be grateful for all of this extra stuff I do for them. And I tell you what I learned with this recent experience with my youngest son, and that is they will remember and appreciate those holidays, but what they'll remember more is that when they got home from school, I wasn't there. When it was time to go to school, I was rushing around and unavailable because I was racing off to work. What they will remember is that they had to make their own lunches. Now, I'm not saying that they shouldn't have responsibilities. I'm not going there for a moment. But what I am saying is it wasn't because I wanted them to learn a lesson. It was because I just said I'm unavailable. And they will absolutely remember the being present every day over those elaborate exchanges. So one of the changes that I've made recently is to ask myself, how can I be more available on an everyday basis for my kids and be that mum, because I only get this experience and opportunity for a very short window of time. I can't believe I've already got 4 teenagers. Two of those have already moved out of home. And then, of course, we've got, 2 that I've still got the experience to have with over the next few years. And I've got one young one who isn't at school yet. And I get the chance to do this over again now. And, if I could go back, I would ask myself, how can I adjust my workflow so that I can be at work when they're at school, but how can I be there and be available for them in those moments that they need me the most? Which is the drive home from school where they're right next to me and they're talking to me and they want to tell me about their day. It might be I've been getting up and going for a walk with my kids each morning now early, because I had to ask myself, where can I find more time? I can't make more time at the end of the day. So where can I stretch my day out in the morning? So getting up earlier and spending that quality time with them and being available until they go to school has been what I needed to change. And that then brings me to number 4, which is I've got 2 boys, and I didn't learn this until much later on, but mums out there, boys and girls, very, very different. We know this. But here's what I didn't know. Girls respond to face. We're in front of each other. And when I'm with Addie, she wants to be right in front of me, looking me in the eyes. We're interacting face to face. Boys want side by side, shoulder to shoulder. And if I had known that many years ago, I would have changed the way I interacted with my boys and had more side by side time. You see, I was wondering, why do my boys not open up to me? Why don't they talk? Why don't they chat? Until I started picking them up from school more often, until I started going for walks with them more often, and they just chat away because we're shoulder to shoulder, side by side, and boys communicate much better that way because they're built that way. It's less confrontational. Females are much better at that, face-to-face, interactive confrontation, looking each other in the eyes. Boys want to be side by side, shoulder to shoulder. And so had I known that, I would have done more side by side with my boys every single day. And I would have valued that drive home from school so much more. I've spoken to a lot of mums who tell me that they don't ever hear anything from their boys at all, ever, except for that drive home. I was talking to a great friend of mine recently. She said her boys don't even notice that she does this most of the time, but on the way home, she'll often detour and do, stop at the shops, the supermarket, maybe take the long way home, because the longer she spends with them in the car before they get home, the more quality time she gets with them. Because the moment she walks through that door at home, they're off doing their own thing. It's silence, and communication is totally out the window. So had I known that, I would have done so much more side by side with my boys. And that brings me to number 5. And that's this. I mentioned that Greg and I have, we've both previously been married. We've come together and we're raising kids that are our own and stepchildren. And that comes with its own massive set of challenges. But one thing that I've known right from the beginning, because my parents went through a divorce when I was very, very small, and I observed a lot of behavior that was people looking out for themselves and just thinking kids are resilient, they'll just deal with it. But the thing is this: when you go through a marriage breakup and when you have kids to somebody who you're no longer married to, and I know lots of my listeners are probably in that boat, there are challenges that come with that. There is a reason you're not with that person anymore. And I'm not saying that it's not because you don't love and respect them. Maybe you don't. But for me, it's certainly not the case. I love and respect my boy's father, and I really appreciate him as an incredible dad. But we don't do things the same way. There's a reason we're not together anymore, and we don't see things the same way. We have, grown in different directions. We have different opinions of how parenting should be done, and different parenting styles, different rules, etc. But here's the thing to remember. You can only control your part. You cannot control what somebody else does. And everything that you do is going to have an impact, a significant impact on your kids. But instead of worrying about what someone else is doing and trying to control that, just bring the focus back to the part you're playing. Because whether you agree with the other parent or not is completely irrelevant. It's actually not the problem of the children. Now, without going into massive depth here, I think the important part is, and the point I'm trying to make, is to show up as the best version of yourself you can at any given time. Ask yourself, I can't control the situation necessarily. I can control what people do. I can't control what the world dishes out. I can't control what an ex-partner might do, or a partner of the partner. But what I do get to control is my response to that. And so how can I, in this moment, be the best version of myself that I can be? Now, here's a little bonus tip. We stuff up. And grace is as important to show to others and your kids and your partner as it is to show yourself. Having a bit of love and grace for yourself, because this is a hard journey. Being a parent is a tough journey, let alone being a step parent and having ex-partners and running business and throwing all of those extra things into the mix here. Being a parent in itself is the hardest job you will ever do. So have some grace for yourself and know this. And this is the biggest thing I would go back and tell myself. You could throw all of that other stuff out of the window, and there's one thing I would say, and that is remember that every moment is a chance to start again. Don't wait for later. Don't wait for tomorrow. Start again now. Think about every minute as a chance for a fresh start, because you are human. You are learning. You are going to get things wrong, but you are also doing your very best in that moment. So when you do something or you say something or you behave a particular way, you've got your phone there and you realize, oh my goodness, I'm a terrible mum because I'm not paying my kids attention. And now what do I do because I've messed this up? Put your phone down in that moment and just start again in that moment. Just ask yourself, how can I connect with my kids right now? Okay, past me 2 minutes ago did something that I'm thinking I could do better. So how can I now show up as a better version of myself in this new moment? Every moment is a fresh chance to start again. Don't expect perfection. And remember, your business will be there. Money will be, you can always earn more money. You cannot earn more time. I cannot go back and get that time back with my kids. And like I said, I've got a great opportunity right now to do better with my daughter. But I feel a lot of guilt, to be perfectly honest, that I didn't stop and spend that time with my boys. But I get a chance to do that now. I get a chance to start again now. And I really honestly just wanted to share this message. I know it's very real and raw, and I don't want to offend anyone with this. I just want you to see this as my heart reaching out to your heart saying, young career-driven me didn't get it. Young career-driven me thought it had to be a this or a that, but it's actually both. And here's the beautiful part about this. I can be a mum and a career woman, but I have to have some priorities, and I have to remember that there are some things that can wait and others that can't. And I can't necessarily pick all of them all at once in every moment. So my kids want those little moments. They may seem pointless. They may seem irrelevant. They may seem like they don't matter. The school pickups, the school lunches, the going for a walk at the beginning of the day doesn't seem as big and as grand as taking them on a great big overseas holiday. But those are the moments that I will remember and that they will remember in 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years' time. They're the moments where I get to help develop them, I get to influence them, I get to connect with them, and I get to love them. And so if you're a parent right now and you're growing business, you know what? You're amazing. I just want to say that you're amazing, because it's hard. But don't put the kids to the side in order to grow that business. So from me to you, I want to send you loads of love. I really hope that this has been helpful, that this has maybe spoken to a couple of people out there. Like I said, this is, so many lessons learned the hard way, but definitely some tips and tricks that I hope you can implement, maybe something just small today that makes the biggest of differences and helps you to have that beautiful harmony that you can have in business and in life. So that's it from me. We'll see you again on the podcast next week. Thanks again, and bye for now. Thank you for joining us in this episode of the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. If you love listening and you found that this was helpful for your direct selling business, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also check out the recommended video that's popped up on your screen right here. I look forward to seeing you again next time. Bye for now.